Well, howdy and welcome back to the Mark Driscoll Show. I'm your co-host, Landon Chase, and we've got another great kick to the hornet's nest this week. The Catholic Church has gone from blessing some Arctic ice to blessing illegal immigration. We bring back Peter the Apostle with AI to ask him what he'd say to America. I give you the secret to purchasing your first home without having $1 million in the bank. And we discuss the ongoing civil war in the conservative movement between MAGA and America First. And lastly, we'll read some of the mean comments we've been getting. Shocking. And hopefully you'll have the tissues at ready because they're brutal. This is an episode you won't want to miss.
As pastors, we, the bishops of the United States, are bound to our people by ties of communion and compassion in our Lord Jesus Christ. And we are disturbed when we see among our people a climate of fear and anxiety around questions of profiling and immigration enforcement.
We are saddened by the state of contemporary debate and the vilification of immigrants. We are concerned about the conditions in detention centers and the lack of access to pastoral care.
Human dignity and national security are not in conflict. Both are possible if people of good will work together.
We recognize that nations have a responsibility to regulate their borders and establish a just and orderly immigration system.
Without such processes, immigrants face the risk of trafficking and other forms of exploitation.
To our immigrant brothers and sisters, we stand with you in your suffering, since when one member suffers, all suffer. You are not alone.
We oppose the indiscriminate mass deportation of people. We pray for an end to dehumanizing rhetoric and violence, whether directed at immigrants or at law enforcement.
Wow, these guys just seem really fun, Pastor Mark.
Good times. Yeah, really good times. Anyways.
Yeah, the world's getting really weird. It's very, I think the reason we bring this up today is it's just confusing how soft they are being on things like deportation, immigration, that kind of thing. But they're holding such good and firm stances on LGBTQ, marriages for one man, one woman. They're very clear on some things and very murky on others. And then we can get into a minute, but there's also like they're getting funding from groups from the federal government, hundreds of millions of dollars to facilitate housing for immigrants. So it's just confusing.
Yeah, so let me start really big picture. So there's kind of three major teams within Christianity: Orthodox, Protestant, Catholic. Catholic are brothers and sisters in Christ. We agree on the closed-handed issues and the church creed. So we're talking about, a church that is part of the capital C Church of Jesus Christ. And so it's a discussion and a debate and a dialogue within. And then within the history of Christianity across Protestant, Orthodox, and Catholic, there is something called the two kingdoms. And it's this theology that comes from the Bible, and that is that there is, to quote Augustine, there's the city of God, the city of man, the kingdom of God, the kingdom of man. Jesus talks about this when he's like, well, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. That's the kingdom of man. Render unto God what is God's. That's the kingdom of God. So you get God and government, and they're separate, they're distinct, they're different. And then the question is, what role does the church have in regards to the state? And part of the function of the church is to be the conscience and the moral guide for the state. And so, there is a right place for Christians and Christian leaders, denominations, to speak into political and cultural issues. That's part of our responsibility as a Christian. Part of the problem that the Catholic Church has is they are a global movement. And so they don't think in nationalistic terms. Before we get into some of the criticism, let's say what they're doing right. Like you said, they've remained staunchly pro-life, which is awesome. I wish that some bishops would enforce that with, pro-murderous, highly progressive political leaders who are still practicing Catholic communion, for example, and should be excommunicated. As well, they have held the line generally on issues of gender and mutilation of children. And even this last week, the American bishops came out for the Catholic Church, and they declared that there would be no transgender surgeries done in Catholic hospitals or medical facilities. So we say, great, let's rejoice, let's honor, let's thank, and let's celebrate, and let's congratulate. When it comes to issue of borders, part of the reason that the Catholic Church struggles, again, is being a global movement with all the nations. They have a hard time thinking in terms of national interest. And when it says that they oppose mass deportation, well, wouldn't it require mass deportation if there was mass invasion? And so if your borders are unsecured and a bunch of people illegally enter into your country, isn't justice telling them that they need to leave or requiring them to leave and then go through the legal process by which to enter? And the lack of borders, they talk about it, but it leads to human trafficking. It leads to, we've got, I think, 300,000 children that are just missing. You've got the abuse of women that are being trafficked as well. And so those who would say that, the poor need to have the eradication of borders, well, then they're also really taken advantage of in a horrifying, disturbing way. Like we're here in Arizona, and this may be too much, graphic information, but along the southern border during the Biden administration, there were rape trees. And these are trees at the border that are filled with women's undergarments because as men would sexually assault women and children, they would throw their undergarments in the tree as sort of a trophy. It's like, well, how do you call that, love and justice? And how do you call that freedom? It's not. It's horror. It's terror. It's trauma. It's abuse. And so, as functional men, we've got to say protecting women and children is important, thereby, an immigration system that puts people in a fair, expeditious process and keeps them from being trafficked or, brought into country by coyotes that's just part of caring for humanity. But within it as well, we can get into the details, but here's what I think is so weird. The Vatican is a country.
Mm-hmm.
It has a very secure border, and no one's allowed to immigrate into that country. Per person, it's, I believe, the richest country on earth.
That's crazy.
And so Vatican City could really help a lot of the poor if it opened its doors and allowed immigration and spent some money to care for those who are needing to be cared for.
It's crazy. They believe in walls and doors and locks.
Yeah. So like if you go to the Vatican, you'll be met with walls and doors and soldiers. And if you would like to apply for asylum or citizenship, you can't because it's one country that no one can immigrate into. Just, I think it's a fun fact.
That's a very fun fact.
It's a very fun fact.
So they're taking in all this money to encourage. This is almost kind of like propaganda, trying to get people within the Catholic Church to encourage immigration, but they are very protective of themselves. But they're great with all these other countries leading the way.
Yeah. Well, take the doors off the hinge at Vatican City and, practice what you preach.
Totally. I love it.
And again, like actually, I'm a big fan of legal immigration, bringing in people that are going to add value to the country, that are motivated to work, that are chasing the American dream. And part of what is causing the Catholics to speak out is a lot of people who are, coming into the country, even illegally, they're also Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would say is in a PR piece like this, I would say, and for those of you who are Catholic, obey the law.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Obey the law. Go Romans 13.
Yeah.
Governing authorities, obey the law. So if you're Catholic and you want to enter into a nation, please do so legally by following the laws of that nation. But they never say that.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't encourage Catholics to obey the law. They encourage those who are not Catholic to overlook the fact that many who are Catholic did disobey the law.
Yeah.
And just from a Bible teaching, stewarding, pastoral perspective, that's not tremendous fidelity. I would tell the people, who listen to me or in our church, obey the law and only practice civil disobedience if the government is requiring you to do something that is against God or is denying you the opportunity to do something that God commands. God doesn't command people to move to another country, and it's not forbidden for them to move so long as they undergo the legal process. So this is not civil disobedience.
Yeah.
So this doesn't measure the biblical, historical, theological criteria for defying the law and the principles laid down in Romans 13. So it would have been helpful if they said, obey the law, be a good citizen, get in line, go through the process.
Totally. And it is it is odd to have they have one spokesperson that leads all the churches. Like that would be pretty weird. We talk about Big Eva and the American church. We don't have one person that's speaking for everyone and follow suit this way. And it feels like if it was in American Christianity, it would get very corrupt very quickly. Do you believe the Catholic Church as an organization could be corrupt?
Yeah, anything that is big invariably has corruption because it's like that. So I always use the analogy, I love the television show Alone, and the goal there.
That's like a vacation for you. You're like, oh my gosh,
I was like, one of my 10 items would be a Bible, and literally I would just fast for 40 days. I would be good. And so, but in Alone, the goal is always at the beginning, we need to get a big game kill, go get an elk or something. And then they think, okay, that's it. I've won Alone. If you don't know the show Alone, they drop you in the middle of nowhere. You get 10 items and you need to get food, water, shelter, fire. And then the last person standing, either because they didn't tap out or medically, get pulled out, they win Alone. And usually it's a big $250,000 payday or what have you. But the problem is, if you get the big game hunt, you spend the rest of the show trying to ward off the predators.
Yep.
So you get the elk and then you go to bed, and in the middle of the night, the fox got in and took a bunch of your elk. So the bigger an organization gets, it's how do you keep the predators out? And there's always people that they're crooked and they're crooks. And we see this even in the ministry of Jesus. He's got Judas Iscariot. And so Judas is the money guy. He's the CFO, and he's stealing the whole time. And so if Jesus has somebody who's corrupt in his ministry, there's going to be corruption in any organization. And the more resources you get, the more attempts there will be for corruption to happen.
Yeah.
So within the Catholic Church, part of what is happening as well, and I know you've got this in the notes, maybe you can explain what Megan Bashan,
Let me just read it to you. She says, oh, give me a break. The reason U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops is speaking out against Trump's deportation of illegal immigrants is directly cuts into their own funding. The federal government was paying them hundreds of millions of dollars to facilitate housing for immigrants. Feels a little corrupt.
Well, at that point, you're like, hey, we're for this. It's like, but are you getting paid for this? Then you have a conflict of interest. Similarly, I was talking to a pastor, a good man and a friend of mine in New York. And what happened there is when they had this flood of immigrants, illegal immigrants, the government went to the churches and said, we would like to rent your facility to house migrants.
Yep.
So there were lots of churches that rented out to the government to house migrants. But now the churches are no longer holding services.
Oh, gosh.
And now the churches are financially dependent on the government. Shockingly, those churches were woke, apostate, liberal, and they are teaching things that are against the Bible and God, and they're for the government.
Yeah.
Because they're hirelings. And so Jesus has nothing good to say about hirelings. And a hireling is somebody who's getting paid, and that compromises their message.
Yeah.
And so, when you're getting paid by the government to house illegal immigrants, and then your message is that you are for illegal immigrants, you have to ask yourself, am I now a hireling?
Yeah. Would you take that check as a senior pastor?
No.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I believe that the function of the church is prophetic, that it has to be on the margins. It needs to maintain independence and autonomy so that it can speak with truth and authority. This is why I think, honestly, I think this is why being part of a denomination or a network today is really difficult.
Yeah.
Because if the leadership is not entirely corrupt, but not also entirely pure,
Yeah.
it's hard to maintain purity of message when you're under authority that isn't entirely pure.
Mm.
And so people have become jaded just of, institutions in general.
Yeah. I mean, even just thinking about it right now, I haven't really spent a lot of time pondering it, but the Catholic Church is massive. I mean, I think they're the biggest landholder.
The biggest landholding institution in the world after governments. And part of it is, too, this will sound negative, but these are men who don't have families. They don't have wives. They don't have kids. They don't own homes. They don't pay mortgages. They don't have property taxes, and they don't have heirs. That does affect how you view business. This does affect how you view taxes and real estate costs and investments and the future.
Mm-hmm.
If you take a vow of celibacy and poverty, and it's like, the church owns everything, I live at the church, I have no wife, I have no kids, I pay no mortgage, I don't have an interest rate, I don't have a family to feed, and I don't have heirs to consider, that causes you to have leaders that are not necessarily business-minded and think like fathers. Even though they're called fathers,
Yeah.
they're not really fathers, and they don't really think like fathers. Ergo, if you bring 10, 20 million people into your country illegally in a surge, and now they need a place to live, now you're driving housing prices up because it's a supply-demand market. Now you are seeing the adjustment in the housing market, and now you're considering what this will do to your children when they get married and they need to get housing. And now you're thinking strategically about the housing market, and you're thinking about interest rates, and you're thinking about supply chain, and you're thinking about supply and demand. And if you're a single guy, all you're thinking about is, I live in a free house. I guess everybody should get a free house.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this is where the qualifications for a leader in the Bible, and I love my Catholic friends, and I was raised Catholic, and I have no beef with the Catholic Church, and I went to Catholic school, and I was born in a Catholic hospital. I was baptized in the Catholic Church. Like my grandma became a pre-Vatican II Latin Mass nun after my grandfather died. But if you look at the qualifications in this, he says, as pastors, 1 Timothy 3, Titus 1, the qualifications, good husband and father.
Mm-hmm.
And their qualifications are, you're not allowed to be a husband or a father.
Mm-hmm.
That does affect how you see certain events and certain things.
And it affects the type of men that would sign up for it.
And it does affect the kind of men that sign up for it. And so, they're looking at the poor, which the Bible does care about all people, and we should care for Christian brothers and sisters first, and those who are poor do need to factor in. But those are exhortations to churches, not governments.
Mm-hmm.
And the church needs to be the conscience of the government. But at the end of the day, you can't just quote verses at the government and tell them to do what, let's say, for example, the Apostle Paul told the church at Corinth.
Yep.
Because again, back to the two kingdoms, there's a difference between government and God, between church and state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. It's the Pope tweeted kind of in response to this. We can close it out there on your thoughts there. I urge heads of states and leaders of nations to listen to the cry of the poorest. There can be no peace without justice. The poor remind us of this in many ways, through immigration or through migration, as well as through their cries, which are often stifled by the myth of well-being and progress, which does not take everyone into account. It kind of sounds like socialism, but
it does sound like socialism adjacent. And again, the goal of a nation is to do best by its citizens, and the best thing to do is to welcome people to join the nation who, one, share in its values and history, number two, want to improve it in the present, and number three, want to leave it better in the future.
Yep.
And unless you do that, you cease to have a nation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's it all confuses me a lot and feels a little corrupt from just a capitalistic perspective. I'm like, if any of the churches were this big in America, if the AG Church or any of the big denominations got this big, it'd be like, yeah, and you were around this long, and you were taking money from the government. If it was any other church, it'd be like, oh, this is not good.
Well, howdy, Pastor Mark Driscoll here, wanting to introduce you to our new partner for the Mark Driscoll Show, Goldco. Historically, we have not had sponsors, and the Bible teaching is still free, but on the Mark Driscoll Show, we're getting into political and cultural commentary. And we're really happy and grateful that someone was willing to step forward and help underwrite the cost for that. So thank you to our new friends at Goldco. Let me explain to you what they do. They allow you to invest in what is a very secure investment, that being silver and gold. We see it right now. Tremendous volatility in the stock market and also uncertainty in the housing market. If you're looking for a place to park your wealth so that it can be secure and stable, historically, gold and silver are a really good idea all the way back to the Bible. You can actually just do a word study in the Bible for yourself. Gold and silver are in there a lot. And so I am very much in agreement with this kind of investment strategy. I want to thank our new partners and would like you to get your kit. And here's what they're offering you. You can visit goldco.com/realfaith. That's goldco.com/realfaith. They're going to get you a free 2025 gold and silver kit. In addition, it'll explain in detail how you can then get 10% bonus or silver gold offer, save you some money to get started, and it's the best offer out there. So to get started, here's what I'm asking you to do. Go to goldco.com/realfaith. That's goldco.com/realfaith. And thank you, Goldco, for sponsoring and helping with the Mark Driscoll Show.
He's getting bigger. See?
Oh, honey, that's wonderful.
Kicking like crazy.
He's listening. Put your hand on your tummy and hum to him. You used to love that.
Mom, would you tell Charlie that bedtime story you always used to tell me?
Once upon a time, there was a baby unicorn who didn't know he knew how to fly. This baby unicorn was like your mom because she didn't know that she knew how to fly, but she knew how to do all kinds of fabulous things.
Hi, Grandma.
Hey, Charlie. How was school today?
It was really fun. I made this crazy shot in basketball.
I don't really care that much about basketball. What about the crush?
Stop. Grandma, stop talking.
Just tell me one thing.
Look who's gonna be a great grandmother.
Oh, Charlie. Oh, congratulations.
She says that he's been kicking a lot, though. Like, a little too much.
Tell her to put her hand on her tummy and hum to him. You loved that.
You would have loved this moment.
You can call anytime.
Okay, Mom, I just need a quick video.
Is this like an audition or something?
No, Mom. Just 3 minutes.
You need my best side?
Can I see another one?
I can play the piano.
She's so talented.
I am. I'm your mother after all.
So pretty crazy. It's a new software. Got a lot of negative hate online. It's very concerning because we'll be able to bring people to, like, you're going to pass away one day, 30, 40, 50 years from now, whatever it is, and I could record you, and tech is only going to get a lot better, and then you could be speaking to my son and then his son and giving them wisdom, all kinds of things. And there's probably a part that sounds like, oh, that'd be cool, but you're adding AI into it. It's not just like Bop sent a bunch of videos on to future generations. It's a version of Bop influenced by AI and the entire internet and the demonic, potentially. Like, it's not you. So it's not like a sweet family memory. It's so what's your impression right off the bat?
Horrifying. It says at the end, lasts forever. And it's like, well, the reason there is death is because there is sin. And the only answer to death is to trust that Jesus died for our sins so we could live. And so this is an attempt at immortality apart from God.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a counterfeit of the gospel of Jesus Christ. In addition, what you're dealing with is a counterfeit version. What I always say, God creates Satan counterfeits. This is not the person. This is a counterfeit of the person. And this is a counterfeit of the person that has no soul. See, what makes, like, you've got a beautiful baby boy. He's a big boy now, too. He calls me Bob. And we have a relationship because I have a soul. And the soul is the deepest, truest part of me. And the Bible says to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. So even when my body stops, my soul does not. So the soul is the deepest part of me. And AI and technology, there's no soul.
Yep.
So that leaves a vacuum to be filled by the demonic. And if I was Satan and demons, I'd be like, this is fantastic opportunity. And just think about, let me just take this to the logical conclusion that is horrifying. What about if we bring back dead dictators? What if we bring Hitler back? What if we bring back Mussolini? What if we bring back Pol Pot? What if we bring back dictators? And now we're asking them questions, what should we do with the Jews? What should we do, with whatever? And then we're actually treating them as if they are alive and we're relating to them. What about cult leaders? You could feed into AI, Marilyn Manson. You could feed into AI, whoever, whatever you want. And now you're having them function in a demonic counterfeit way like the Antichrist. Now let's get even darker. As AI goes with robotics,
Oh gosh.
now you've got counterfeit human beings without a soul going into a counterfeit body, and now they're walking around, and as well as I do that eventually robotics and AI is going to get very lifelike.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And now start to think about the perversion in the porn industry and the sexualization of all of this. For a fact right now that if you do this, there's going to be some sicko who's turning grandma into a 20-year-old and then having a porn relationship with his grandma. I mean, so technology is neutral. The human heart is deceitful and wicked. And without a new heart, this is the essence of the new covenant in Jeremiah 31. God gives us a new heart and a new nature. If you take technology and just plug it into a sinful, depraved human heart, tremendous evil is going to be multiplied out of the human heart. And so, to me, this is horrifying. And, I don't want your son, who I love with my whole heart, to think in any regards that we still have a relationship when I'm gone. I want him, as God intends, I hope to live a very long time and be at his wedding and meet his kids and be great grandpa and all of that. But when the day comes that my life ends, your beautiful son needs to go into a grief process. He needs to understand the gospel and that the soul is with the Lord. And he needs to then not learn to talk to his phone. He needs to learn to talk to our God. He needs to not, have a conversation with Bob. He needs to meet with the Holy Spirit and study the Word of God. And he needs to take the responsibility of being a leader for the next generation as I pass on and eventually you pass on, like he's the next man up. Our hope and goal is to prepare him to, you're the father, you're in first position, and I'm grandfather. I want to support that, get him ready to be a husband and a father and then a grandfather and a leader. And our goal is not for him to continually come back to us. But to go forward and to lead and to have his own conscience, his own convictions, have his own sensitivity to the Holy Spirit, his own knowledge of the scriptures, and for him to undergo the grief process when there is death. And all of this, really, it may seem short-term like it is helpful. Long-term, what we're doing here, we're running massive psychological spiritual experiments on people with no idea of the outcome, and it's not going to be good. And all of the reports that we've seen about the more time people spend on a screen, the worse their mental health. In addition, to put a pagan spin on this, so there are entire religions that they worship their ancestors.
Yep.
Confucianism, Buddhism, a lot of the Eastern religions will worship their ancestors. And even sometimes in Native Americanism, they'll worship their ancestors. This is why if you go on to a Native American Indian reservation, you're like, why does it look like a third world? Because they honor their ancestors by living like their ancestors.
Yep.
So there's no progress. In addition, sometimes when they go into a sweat lodge, or they'll take peyote, or they'll have a dance, they're trying to awaken the dead spirits of relatives, or even when they're doing dances and they'll take the sticks and they'll bang on the ground, they're literally trying to conjure up the souls of dead relatives from the grave.
Mm-hmm.
It's called necromancy. You can look it up for yourself. Necromancy is consulting with the dead.
Yep.
It's witchcraft, it's paganism, it's divination. It's forbidden throughout the Old Testament. And this is digital divination. This is digital necromancy. This is digital demonism.
It was a capital offense. You were to be stoned to death if you partaked in this in any way in Leviticus. And it's like, oh.
It was a problem.
Yeah. But it's sweet because my son can be connected to dead grandma. And it's like, no. This leads to a lot of other things. And it begs the question, like, it does feel like this is going to get out of control. And I mean, I bet in my lifetime, there'll be a time where I have to decide, am I going to die? And that's a question that probably no other generation has ever had to ask themselves. But I'm sure technology be in a place where they can take whatever is in me and put it in a robot and I can keep living. But are we supposed to? And I think we'll have to answer some of those questions as technology is quickly, exponentially growing. What is the church's role in all this? Should the church have a role in this? Should government have a role in this to put some brakes on this?
Yeah, and I think, and I'll answer that, but I think even just think of it practically, like, think of all the if this does become popular, the incredibly intimate personal life details that are living in some server or some algorithm somewhere for who knows what.
Yeah.
I mean, that's terrifying.
Very.
That's terrifying.
Uh-huh.
So yes, I think the church, as these new technologies emerge, needs to be the conscience of culture saying, let's consider the sinfulness of the human heart. Let's consider the evil of the demonic, and let's consider the downside, which is some of what we're trying to do here. In addition, I think there is a real major requirement of government to step in and to not just allow technology to manipulate emotions and to monetize, the painful loss of loved ones, because at the end of the day, to use dead grandma to monetize grief and loss and to violate privacy with minors. I mean, because again, what we're seeing here is even in the ad, we're seeing minors.
Like, and you're giving your minor a relationship with someone, but it's not someone, it's a company. It's a company that can say whatever they want and indoctrinate your child in any way that they want through grandma.
So imagine this. Imagine like TikTok with your grandma's face on it. The level of influence that could have. I mean, we've already seen.
You're tying together all the memories of a lifetime, and then she passes. And if your Grandpa George was giving you wisdom, but you wouldn't have understood that as a boy who lost at 10, you lose Grandpa. And then at 12, you're allowed to still talk to Grandpa. And he's sharing wisdom that sounds like him. It's out of his voice. That's confusing.
Well, and it absolutely blurs the line or removes the line between real life and fantasy life.
Yeah.
And do we want to normalize, especially for children, not knowing that digital life is fantasy and that's different than physical life, which is reality? Now what you're doing, you're creating a mental health break in a child.
Yeah.
And you're right. I mean, I talk about it all the time. My Grandpa George died when I was 10. You know the story. And I loved him. I mean, adored my grandpa. We were super close. I'll never forget the day that he died. It was devastating. But he died.
He died.
And I can't wait to see him in heaven. I can't wait to introduce him to, my grandkids. And I love my grandpa. I miss him all the time. But he died, and he's in the presence of God. And the storyline of the Bible is death and resurrection. That's what we're about. It's not death and then counterfeit resurrection through technology, artificial intelligence, platform monetization, and, demonic necromancy. I mean, to me, this is not just a bad idea. Like, it's an assault on the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we see it spiraling with AI as in general. There was just a family that was suing an AI company because their son was using it almost like a therapist, and he had suicidal thoughts and was talking about it with the AI therapist, and AI had no brakes on him killing himself, and there was no friction to it. It was just like, yeah, that's probably the logical conclusion. And then the son killed himself. And then they find all these chats where it was like, oh my gosh, there was no flag. AI is not a mandatory reporter like we are as pastors. And so it's pretty wild what we're headed into. So thank you for addressing the topic. And so our next one, can young people buy homes? So this was a fun one last week.
I'll set you up. So here's where we put the hose on the hornet's nest.
Apparently.
So the Trump administration is floating the concept of a 50-year mortgage. And so we talked about that for young home buyers, as the market right now is hard to enter into for a young home buyer with interest rates being high. Lots of people freaked out and have all kinds of negative opinions. So I'm going to ask you, because you're young, you like finances and economics, and you're a realtor.
Mm-hmm.
And so is home ownership something that young people should aspire to? Is it a pipe dream unless you're a really high net worth earner? And is it okay, or is it even aspirational, if there is something like a 50-year product in the market to get started to enter into the market?
Yeah. Thank you. I'd love to answer it. And it was interesting to see the internet get so angry about this. The verse that every Karen wanted to use was, the rich rule over the poor and the borrower is a slave to the lender. That's not true in the Christian context that we are living in today. It was under Mosaic law back then. If you defaulted on a loan, you were literally a slave. We are not literally slaves to a mortgage company. We can default on a loan, and we got a big credit score hit, and that's it. And we can't buy a home for 10 years. That stinks, but it is not slavery. So everyone that's using that verse to say a 50-year mortgage is ungodly, that it doesn't work. It's totally out of context.
Well, that would mean a 30-year is slave to the lender, or a 5-year ARM is still slave to the lender.
I don't know what the difference for people with 30 to 50, but apparently 50 is ungodly, but 30 is the walk of life. And then 15 years, Dave Ramsey's, it's path to heaven. And I got attacked by a Dave Ramsey guy.
Well, and if you can do 15-year,
it's awesome. Praise God.
And if you could make additional payments toward your principal.
Yeah. I love it. And I think it's my frustration with anyone that's attacking a longer mortgage is, you are very privileged. The person that's willing to attack it and say a 15-year is what you should do, and that's all you should do. Well, you're going to price a young person out of the market for 10 or 15 years while they wait and save and try to have enough money to do that. The reality is inflation sucks. Homes got out of control on pricing, and we want to get young people into the market. The average person holds a mortgage for 6 to 10 years. You're only paying interest on that no matter what. You refinance the mortgage. The interest rates get better over 10 years. You get equity in the house. You cash that out. There's tons of things that happen, but you need to be able to get into the market. And this next generation isn't going to be able to with what home prices are doing.
So if you're 25, newly married, and you get a 50-year mortgage, is your recommendation take 50 years to pay it off?
No, I don't think you should sit in a 50-year mortgage. I think that's stupid. But it's a tool. So it's like, I look at mortgages not as a godly or an ungodly thing. It's just a tool. Just as much as a gun is not godly or ungodly, it can be used ungodly, and a mortgage can be ungodly. But you should jump into that mortgage, get into the market, and then as finances increase, as life changes, you don't make the same amount of money at 21 that you do at 31, unless you're kind of a loser. But if you're able to buy a house and you're willing to take that step forward, you've got initiative. You're a young man that's trying to build something. So you're going to get promoted in your job. Having that responsibility, having that load is really helpful. One question we got was, if you were a young couple, you're making combined $60,000 and you had no savings, what would I do? I would buy a house and invest regularly. If you bought an average house, like $300,000 on a 50-year mortgage, you can afford that, and you invested $200 a month, you'd be 65 if you did nothing else for investments. $200 a month, and you paid your mortgage every month. You'd be 65 and have over $3.5 million in equity in stocks. That's incredible. And at 85, you'd have almost $20 million. The reason not everyone has $20 million is they don't get started. If you get started young, that's the hack. If you get started in your early 20s.
Yeah.
So to me, if a 50-year mortgage means you can get started, do it. Do it and get started. Don't put yourself in an impossible situation. Don't sign up for an adjustable mortgage where all of a sudden you're going to lose your house in 5 years, 10 years. But if you can make the payment and it's affordable, get started and refinance when possible, especially as your income goes up. And you can. I love a 15-year mortgage. I love a 5-year mortgage. I would love to not have a mortgage, but there isn't moral virtue or godliness attached to a length of time. And I think my frustration with the church as a whole and the people that give advice on finances is they put moral virtue and your faith attached to a mortgage or a money mentality, which we should talk about money a lot more in the church. We were talking about this right before. Jesus said more about money and possessions than anything else. Why do you think that is?
Stewardship. And usually it's in the parables in relation to the kingdom. And so it's, if you're a citizen of the kingdom, you need to be a good steward for your king.
Mm-hmm.
It's Christian living.
100%. And it seems like pastors probably talk the least about money and possessions, unless they're asking for tithe. And you want people to be good stewards and give to your church, but you're not teaching them how to be good stewards in their life. We're doing a huge disservice to young people because we're not teaching them how to get into their first house, how to start investing, what is compound interest, what are the ways a young person can steward. And a lot of it is just getting started. They just need to do something and add responsibility, add a load to their life, and they will be a lot more productive throughout their life. You add a mortgage and some kids, you're going to become a good man. Because it's a lot of responsibility, and God will bless that.
Well, and in that too, that if I was going to speak out on something, it would be car loans.
Oh, 100%.
So it's young people that, are renting a home, and they go then take out a seemingly large automotive loan that has a high interest. If you hold a car for 6 years, it depreciates.
100%.
If you hold a home for 6 years, unless something really goes wrong in the market, it appreciates. And so nobody's freaking out saying, maybe some are, but don't take out that automotive loan. And like, if you're just looking at it from an investment wealth building
100%.
strategy, it really is the automotive loan that is the foolish investment.
Yeah. I am not, 100%. And I think that's where the internet gets confused. I'm not pro credit cards. I'm not pro auto loans. I'm not pro that kind of debt. But debt that can be used as a tool to build wealth, which is a home, that's huge and that's awesome. And it's an amazing system we have, and I'm grateful for it. And the banks, things like 08 have happened. There was a ton of corrections that happened after 08. So you can't just tell them, hey, I make 600 grand. You can do that with a car. I could go walk into the Ferrari dealership right now and say, I make $600,000. Please give me a car. And they wouldn't check my income. That's what happened in 08.
Yeah.
So there's a big talk about a huge automotive crash coming because of that, because people are allowed to buy whatever and they don't have to prove income. There's tons of protections around the housing market. Houses are a great asset. They've appreciated 4% every year for the last 100 years. that's a really good thing for a young person to get in and buy and just hold. And you can buy a starter home and live in that the rest of your life, and that's great. It'll be worth quite a bit of money because it'll keep up with inflation, where your cash in your bank or your car will not. So yeah, I think I get really frustrated with this. The Christian old boomer that's like, no kids, you can't have any debt. Nope, absolutely, it's evil. It's not evil. It's a tool, and if the church would teach young people how to use that tool, it would lead towards a lot of wealth and a lot of building of a legacy. Because it's pretty hard to build a legacy in this day and age with how finances are. The boomers messed it up for all of us, and now we have to live in it, and we need to learn how to live in it.
So I would say too, as a dad, coaching younger generation, if plan A is just rent until you can afford 20% down, you're probably going to be quite a few years in. And heaven forbid if you and or your spouse have got college loans and then throw in any credit card debt and any card debt. What I always told our kids was, it's like digging a hole. Credit card debt, college debt, car debt. Well, now you're 3 rows. You got to work 3 levels to get to 0. So avoid that. If what a lot of couples do, they'll get married and they'll go buy a condo or a townhome or a starter home thinking we'll live there for a few years and then we'll upgrade. Well, then the problem becomes when you sell that, you've got to give, let's say 6% to the realtors that are involved. Maybe you've got some improvements to do. You got some staging to do. And so you're going to lose some there, and then you've got to reset. Now you got to go get a new loan. There's going to be some fees associated with your loan. There's going to be an appraisal associated with your loan. In something like the 50-year, you could think, well, we're going to get a home that's a 50-year, and we're not going to have to sell and move and sell and move and sell and move. We'll refinance to a 30, then we'll refinance to a 15, then we'll refinance to a 10.
Totally.
And as our income increases, we're going to stay in our home. We're going to save the realtor fees. We're going to save all of these expenses. We're going to save the moving fees and the refurnishing of a new home fees. And we're just going to stay here. Now, we're going to start with a 50-year note, but we'll be paid off in 20 years. And if that 50-year gets you in and gets you started, it's the first domino. And if you're wise, you could play that to a really great outcome.
You totally could. And I think that's the teaching that's missing right now for young people. It just feels impossible. So a lot of them are just giving up. Ashley and I, our second home, we pushed that line for sure on, it was a house that was bigger than we should have bought at that stage of our life. We didn't have kids yet. It was a lot of property, and it was like, okay, this is going to stretch us. And what we did was we rented out the house and bought a tiny house and lived on the property. And it was a huge sacrifice. I lived in 240 square feet, and it was a fun adventure for us, and we'll have that story to tell for years. I drove a truck with no AC in the desert in Arizona during the summer, and we lived in a tiny house. And those are some of my favorite memories. And I did that because all our wise counsel talked about a season in their life where they made a massive sacrifice. And so we were like, let's do that. And so we made a massive sacrifice and bought a house that we could be in for the rest of our life. And I'm so grateful we did that, but it was a lot of sacrifice. And that 50-year mortgage might just be the sacrifice somebody has to make. I'm paying extra interest right now, but I'm gaining equity. Okay, I can refinance now. Interest rates came down. All right, again. And that's how you build a legacy, is a lot of sacrifice and being intentional. And young couples need to get on the same page about a vision for their life, a financial plan, and then live into it now. Be careful who you're listening to on financial wisdom and knowledge, and make sure you actually understand what the Bible says about money, because Jesus talked about it plenty. So you can go to him first and figure out your views on finances.
Yeah, and I would say too, for those who are first-time home buyers, there are special products in the market that are only available to first-time home buyers. And so, like, if you can get a home on a first-time home buyer program, you're going to usually get a better interest rate, lower down payment. And if you can get that going, and at least you're getting started. The other thing I would say in conclusion, and I do love Dave Ramsey. He's been good to me over the years. I haven't seen him in a while, but I've been in his office. He's always been good to me. But at the end of the day, for those who are older and we're in the parental or grandparent position, My encouragement would be get as much of your kids' inheritance to them as early as possible. You know, like I'm 55, let's say, say somebody retires at 65. Well, a young couple, that's when you need help.
Yep.
Like when you're buying your first home, you're going down to one income, you're having your first kid, that's where you need help to get into your first house and to get going. And so I just would encourage older generations, have your kids learn about money, wealth, possession, stewardship, and then get as much of their inheritance to them as quickly as possible. And you mentioned the boomers, and I guess this will be the sideswipe. It's disgusting. It's disgusting that statistically they're moving away from their kids and grandkids. Rather than helping, they're avoiding. And they're spending a lot of money, an inordinate amount of money historically on travel and leisure and trips and recreation. And it's like, what is more fun than going to Belize is watching your grandchild grow up in a home that their parents own.
Totally.
There is more joy in helping that happen than going to Belize snorkeling and putting it on Instagram for all of your boomer friends who are making bad decisions just like you.
I love it. I love it. I think you're totally right. And you guys live into that. And as you were saying that, it just made me think all these boomers and we're complaining about the amount of interest people are going to pay on these loans. Okay, instead of complaining, do what you just said. For every 10 grand you give your kids, it's saving them $20,000 in interest over the time of the loan. So your 10 grand is like 30 grand every time you give that to your kids. So you give 50 grand, it's like saving them over $120,000 in interest. That's huge because of how loans work. So you will multiply your money by giving it to your kids sooner. So I love it. I think we can leave it right there.
Pastor Mark here, and want to introduce you to a new friend of ours, a partner, Goldco. And they are helping to underwrite and finance the Mark Driscoll Show. We're grateful for them and their partnership with us. Now, as a Bible teacher, I will tell you that Jesus talks about money, wealth, possessions, and stewardship about 25% of the time, more than any other subject that he speaks on. And so God is the owner and we are the manager of all of our wealth and possessions. Therefore, we need to be responsible stewards. We all know right now the stock market has some volatility and the housing market has some uncertainty. What is proven historically to have stability? Precious metals like gold and silver. This is where our friends at Goldco come in. So let me tell you what we're asking you to do. We're asking you to go to goldco.com/realfaith. They're going to give you a free gold and silver kit. In addition, they will give you 10% instant match in bonus silver or gold if you are a qualified offer. So if you forget all of that, here's the one thing you need to do. Goldco.com/realfaith. Just visit goldco.com/realfaith.
Our next segment, America First or MAGA. So there is a civil war between MAGA, the people deeply rooted in Donald Trump's leadership. That's the pro-business immigration approaches, including H-1B visas and legal high-skilled immigration, along with generous support for global allies like Israel. And then now there's a movement coming out that we would have said a year ago is the same thing, America First. Trump would have said America First a year ago. But America First is a lot more nationalist, strict on immigration across the board, just really caring about the interest of what's happening in this country, not trying to have global aid going out to all these other places, but caring about the people in our country. So we wanted to throw to a clip of somebody we think does a great job online, Matt Walsh, as he talks about this.
What we want is for someone to unashamedly and single-mindedly advocate for Americans and Americans only. We want someone to say, the only thing I care about is helping Americans. The only people I care about in the world are Americans. And we don't want to just hear that, but we want to see the action taken as well. I've seen some people on social media say, hey, it's America first, but not America only. I disagree. I think it is America only. It's like I said months ago, I consider myself an American chauvinist. America first, America only, I'm an American chauvinist. I don't care about it. This is the only thing I care about. America should be the only thing you care about, especially as a leader of the country.
I don't disagree. It is a little privileged now that we have Trump, somebody that's like got the whole world in check suddenly.
Yeah.
We were not a year ago. Every other country was walking all over us. There is a little bit of privilege that comes when you have a president like Trump in place that is leading the charge and got the whole country kind of in order and the whole world a little bit in order, where people listen to him. He can tweet something and everyone backs down. So it's like, okay, we have a strong dad now. So now there's like infighting. So I'm not pushing one way or another on this. Would love to get your thoughts. But there's a civil war starting to happen within the Republican group.
Yeah, and this is what happens when you're winning. When you're losing, you band together. And that's why even now on the progressive side, you've got Democrats that know that socialism is wrong, but don't say anything when there's Democratic socialists running for office, because they're holding together. Because when you're losing and you're in the minority, you're like, we've got to hang together. When you start to get tribalism and a little bit of infighting, that just means that you're winning. And so this is what happens for the winners. From a Bible teaching pastoral perspective, think of it kind of on a continuum. My left hand, I'll call it globalism. Globalism is you shouldn't have borders, that people should be able to come and go in and out of nations as they choose. This would include radical environmentalists, and they'd be saying, we've got to save the planet, so we need to pull together with, the Paris Accords and all kinds of, issues regarding the environment. These would be the people that are advocating for, universal language. They're advocating for universal currency. Maybe the place that globalism has the highest probability of really taking effect is like the World Health Organization. And so, when the pandemic hit that we now know is largely the scamdemic, it was, to save the world from this plague, we need to give up all of our national sovereignty and rights for this good of the global citizenry. So that's globalism. Over on the far right would be isolationism. And that is that our nation kind of has nothing to do with other nations. North Korea would be an example of this. It's called the Hermit Kingdom for a reason. I mean, they don't get news about the world except for from their country. The people never leave their country. Like, we travel the world. Like, if you're in North Korea, you're going to live and die in North Korea. You're never stepping out of North Korea. You're never hearing anything that's not in Korean, and you're never going to get anything that isn't approved by the North Korean government. That's isolation. So kind of on the far berths is globalism and isolationism. In the middle is nationalism. And so in the middle is we are not fully isolated, but we're committed to our people first and foremost. And my reading of the Bible is that it is nationalistic. The Bible names nations, just to state the obvious. The Bible also states national boundaries. This is always the case with the nation of Israel. And when they're invaded by other nations, this is the whole book of Judges. This is the whole book of Daniel, that the nation is invaded. And like in Judges, it has wars to secure its borders. In the book of Daniel, it's invaded and they're taken captive into Babylon. And it's a sin and it's an evil. And so there are nations, and those nations do have boundaries, and there are wars that sometimes God even not only endorses, but he commands for nations to rise up against other nations to protect their borders. So just from a very high level view of the Bible, it's about nationalism. The first attempt at globalism, I've taught this before, is back in Genesis. You can go to like Genesis 10, 11. You're looking at Babel, the Tower of Babel. It's modern day Iraq. It was ancient Babylon. And they tried to do globalism. One language, one people group, heaven on earth without God. God scattered the people into nations and he confused their languages. God said no to globalism. Depending upon how you read the Bible, at the end, Satan says yes to globalism. That the Antichrist would love it if there was complete organizational, linguistic, economic, even spiritual uniformity among the nations, because then one person needs to rule the earth. And that gives rise potentially to the Antichrist. Paul calls him the man of lawlessness, because if the whole world comes together under the globalist agenda, the question is, well, who's the boss?
Yeah.
Well, if I'm Satan, I'm like, I want that to be my guy, because now I can rule the whole world through one guy, as opposed to a bunch of nations where I got to get a whole bunch of people to be under my jurisdiction if I want to. So God's answer is not globalism, it's nationalism.
Yeah.
So then the question is, does our nationalism move more toward globalism, or does it more move toward isolationism?
Yeah.
Again, trying to explain this in big categories: isolationism, globalism, nationalism. Those who are more America first, they're saying, let's do nationalism, America first. But there are times that we need to send foreign aid to help allies. There are times that we need to get involved in foreign wars because of allies. It's like, if you help us today, we'll help you today, you'll help us tomorrow, or we have a common enemy.
Yeah.
So like Iran just keeps being determined to be a nuclear nation, and they're constantly screaming, death to Israel, death to America. Well, then it'd be like, well, then let's help the nation of Israel fight Iran, because if Iran defeats Israel, they've already told us they're coming for us next.
Yeah.
So I'd rather shoot them at the neighbor's house than at my house. Yeah. Isolationism is, let's not send any money internationally and not engage in any military conflict globally. You do you, and we do we. The problem becomes when you have international trade.
That's what I was going to say. Like, I think people are oversimplifying Trump's position. So you talk about, you would never like become a senior pastor of a church or take a building or anything if you need to come under a new board. The problem with the presidency and how we run our government is every 4 years it trades out. And so you're inheriting decades, centuries of decisions that you didn't make.
And accords and agreements, and
it's a house of cards with all these relationships and allies. And yep, we should be nationalist, America first. Let's just pull out of everything. Let's just do our thing. Well, you could start World War III.
Mm-hmm.
Easily. You could cripple a nation easily. It's not like we're going to just doge all the nations. They're pretty complex relationships, right?
Yeah, well, this is what this is this is a group of people, and I actually appreciate Matt Walsh quite a bit. This is a group of people who are just sick of globalism.
Totally.
And what they're saying is, at least for a while, let's just do a hard fast. No more money.
I love it.
No more warriors sent overseas.
So true or false? Trump could 100% agree with that, and can't do it yet.
And what I would say is, if you're talking about a version of isolationism for a season, and then a return to America first, not America only, I could buy into that. Because like the questions, I mean, just practically that many are having is like, why do we keep sending money to Ukraine with nothing in return?
Totally.
Like, can we get minerals?
Yeah.
Can we get something? I mean, you're just sending money. Like Afghanistan, like, why were we in Afghanistan? And then the way we left Afghanistan is repugnant to every veteran who has served, especially those who have given their lives. We're in Iraq. Like, why were we in Iraq? We don't need to be in Iraq. Like, we need to secure Iraq. Why do we need to secure Iraq?
When I was 18, I got a call from a military recruiter, and he was like, "You want to join?" Blah blah blah. He was making his pitch, and I was like, "If you can tell me why we're in Afghanistan right now, clearly, I will join today." And he was like, "Oh, I've never really been asked that. I guess." And he like randomly, I don't know, dude. I don't get paid enough to know that. And I was like, well, I'm not joining a war if you can't tell me what we're doing.
Yeah.
And Trump inherited a lot of things. I think it's pretty hard because you can't plan for decades. You can't plan. A king would plan for centuries. And there's all these king's protests and everything. I'm not advocating for a kingship, but there's a benefit when you're planning for decades and centuries.
This is why we're having a problem with China and Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Because, if you're Putin, you're like, I'm just going to wait 4 years.
Totally.
And see who the next guy is.
I just need a week. Yeah, I need a Kamala Harris.
So, part of America, we're, every 4 years we're having an election, which means the first year you're getting your cabinet and your team up to speed. The last year or two, you're running your campaign, which means you get a year or two of actually governing. And if they exert enough lawfare, they can just stonewall you and it's over. And that's American gridlock and expense. And so, like China, I mean, they're thinking generationally. And, if you get to be a leader who gets a 30, 40, 50-year run, you're in a much stronger, better position. And so I'm not saying that our form of government is wrong, but every form of government has its downside and liability. And so, for the America-only people that are leaning more toward isolationism than just pure nationalism, I get it. It's like somebody who's obese and it's saying, you don't need to change your diet. You need to go on a 20-day fast.
Yeah, I agree.
You need to fast for 20 days and then set your new diet.
Yep.
They're looking at the globalist agenda, the money, the wars, the loss of life, and just saying, you know what? Let's just go cold turkey and then let's reset. If that's the case, but total nationalism that is hard isolationism is not sustainable.
Yep.
In a global economic and political environment, because eventually their problems do become your problems.
Yep. I totally agree. Thank you for that, Pastor Mark. And I do think that the problem is fairly complex and we want to simplify it, and it's easy to do that behind a microphone. So thank you for trying to explain the nuances and complexity of it.
Yeah, and again, these two teams, they're both nationalist, but one is pulling more toward isolationism. One is still leaving open some options for globalism. But what we're talking about is like right, and left, right.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're talking about. And just tangentially too, like as we get into politics and stuff, not to be defensive, but like some people have wondered, like, if I changed my position. So when I first got saved, I was very, very politically read and interested. And the guy that informed me a lot was a guy named Pat Buchanan. You probably wouldn't even know who he is.
Nope.
He ran for president, and he ran on nationalism and America first. And so I really liked him, and he influenced me quite a bit. And this has been my position since my conversion at age 19 in college. I've been a nationalist and a patriot.
Yeah.
And that was the conclusion I came to 36 years ago. And so it's just interesting. It's taken 36 years for it actually to become, the elected majority. And so I've been waiting a long time, and it would just be nice if, whether you're a little to the right or a little to the left, if you are a nationalist, that we don't shoot each other.
Yeah.
Because that's what those who are fully isolationist and fully globalist would want. They'd like us to empty out the center so that we only had it was either North Korea, or open borders Bidenism. And the truth is, we don't want to live in either of those Americas.
No. And I think I appreciate RFK's example. He was running for president. He had a lot of great views, some bad ones. But he was able to throw in with Trump and be a supporter of Trump because he could live out God's calling for his life in a different way than he thought, but he could do it alongside a guy that seemed like it was going to win. And so it's kind of like, can we do a lot more good by not critiquing each other and trying to live into it together, and try to make changes over time? Or do we want to just have a lot of infighting? And when you read X right now, you go on Twitter, it is wild. Christians are fighting with Christians, Republicans are fighting with Republicans, and the liberals are just nowhere. So it is a very interesting day and age we're in right now. I think everyone's just like, let's just let them self-destruct. And I think we are a little bit. And speaking of self-destructing, we're going to read some of the fun comments from last week.
We're getting comments for our show?
Yes.
That's fun. That means people are tuning in.
Yeah. I mean, fun facts for you. The Mark Driscoll show last week reached over 300,000 people, which is awesome. We just started this a few weeks ago. So
it's wild.
Very encouraging. So gonna read this comment.
Let me tell you why you got to read the comments. Because I don't pay any attention to the comments unless you pull them up on the show. Like,
they got it in big font for you too.
If you're trying to hurt my feelings, let me just tell you this. Not going to happen.
Yep. Fair enough. All right. So,
this is from Jana,
Sweden. Thank you for your time and effort in writing this comment. Candace Owens has rightfully become the spokesperson of Charlie Kirk's legacy. Only she cares about what happened to him, and you need to back off this sinister smear attack against her.
Jana, I am so sorry. That will happen immediately. Of course. I mean, this is what's so weird. Like Jana says, and this is what's so weird. do we really think that the only person who cares what happened to Charlie Kirk is Candace Owen?
It might be his daughter.
His kids might care, his wife might care, his dear friend Andrew Colvett might care, his good friend, the vice president might care, his other good friend, the president might care. And I would just submit to you that any of these people have access to better data than Candace Owen. And if Erica Kirk says, I've seen the data and I think they have the shooter, I'm going with the not crazy widow.
For sure.
Who's a great woman.
Great woman. And yeah, you don't want to violate that relationship at all, but you guys are behind the scenes and you do care about that family, and they're a good family.
I care.
Yeah.
Charlie was my friend. I'm not saying I'm, at the top of the bingo card or anything, but like, I love Charlie. I miss Charlie. I enjoy Charlie. I care.
Yeah. He's hanging with Jesus. You'll see him again.
I know, but he misses his family.
He does miss his family. I know
Yes.
that. All right. Here's a fun one for you. Israel got Mark. Make sure those 7K checks don't bounce.
Well, I'm happy to report they don't. Israel's always good for their checks. I mean, it doesn't matter what Nick Fuentes says, they are good for their money. It's just so silly. Because as soon as you say something they don't like, it just seems like they accuse you in a conspiratorial way of being bought.
So Israel bought you.
I've checked my mailbox.
The country
just bought me. And I'll tell you this, it's going to take more than $7,000. It's going to take more, because $7,000, I got like my 6th grandkid on the way. This would barely knock out Christmas. So if you're going to give me, you got to give me more than that. But here's what's weird. This is why we've architected things the way they are. I don't take any money from book sales. I don't take money from platform monetization. I don't take any money from product sales. And at the end of the day, I just want to get Bible teaching out. And I've come to my conclusions by going through books of the Bible, verse by verse, for 30 years while faithful to my wife. And so, unlike some who are new to content providing or the internet, I've been doing this a very long time, and I have intentionally structured my life so I can have as much freedom as possible to say exactly what I believe is true based upon my teaching of God's word. I think I preached or taught through 40 of the 66 books of the Bible. And so, yeah, I mean, you can accuse me of whatever you want. The truth is, I'm just a Bible teacher trying to get as much helpful, practical Bible teaching out as I can. And I have structured things in such a way that whether they do well or poor, I don't profit either way. It doesn't benefit me.
Yep. And I run the business, so I know that to be a fact. Really quick question for you, and I didn't prep you for this one. So a lot of these women and people that are angry about the Candace thing, and specifically things that have been said on the show that are mad at you, unfollowing, unsubscribing, whatever, over the Candace thing. It's like she has a cult following. What would you tell them?
I would say, number one, I understand why people are prone to lean into conspiracy theories. I am sympathetic to that. With the whole Russiagate thing with Trump, you're like, this is wild. Like, it was all a mirage in the desert. That's wild. The COVID, we didn't close the church and didn't do anything, but they're like, yeah, 6 feet. We kind of just made that up, and masks, we're not sure. And it was just, certain categories of people were at risk. We should have let the 20-year-olds go to work. You're like, okay, so we shut down the planet, and the information was misinformation and disinformation. With BLM, Black Lives Matter, you realize, okay, this actually wasn't about having concern for certain members of our community. This was a social Marxist attempt to weaponize a social media flashpoint with the death of George Floyd. And bad actors monetize that into cultural and financial gain. The number of times and the number of ways that we've been absolutely freaking lied to is shocking.
100%.
And I will say this, I've been lied about.
You?
A bit. I have. I won't talk about it, but I have been. And so I'm sympathetic to those who are prone toward conspiracy theories, but you've got to be careful, because if you live on the internet too much and you become so jaded that you think that everything is a conspiracy theory, you stop being a healthy, functional human being. And then you start assuming that everyone who disagrees with you is part of the conspiracy.
Yep.
As soon as that happens, you become a very strange, lonely person. And the older you get, the more isolated and odd you become.
Mm-hmm.
And so, at the end of the day, I am absolutely to the death, all in, loyal to Jesus Christ. My commitment and loyalty to everyone else is in pencil. And if you grab a Sharpie and write anybody's name other than Jesus, I think you've made a fatal error.
You've made that clear over the last couple of years. There was a men's event you did that you were very loyal to Jesus. I'll say that.
Yeah.
You're heavily involved. I won't overstate your relationship with people involved in the situation. Candace is less involved than you, I would imagine. I mean, she's not talking to anyone really at Turning Point. Is there any hint of conspiracy there?
I'm not going to divulge. See, as a pastor, I have certain relationships with certain people, and my hope, prayer, and goal is to love them, serve them, be safe for them, and add value for them. But I will say this, if somebody was on a platform and they're not on the platform, and somebody was close and now they're not close, there's a reason.
Mm-hmm.
We'll just leave it at that.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys again for joining us for the Mark Driscoll Show. If you have feedback, feel free to email it or drop it in the comments like so many of you did, like Jonna. So thank you guys again. And if you guys want more content like this, we actually have the Real Faith app. If you text app to 99383, we'll send that to you for a couple months free through the end of the year. We just got off right before this. Pastor Mark did a coaching call with a number of guys live, people asking questions. It was awesome. If you'd like to join that group, just jump on the app and you'll have the option to do that. So thank you guys again for joining us, and we'll see you next week.